welcome Tal, co-founder and CTO of DAV. Tal is going to talk about how creating a transportation point.
Thank you. Hey, good morning. As she said, I'm Tal. I'm from the DAV Foundation. I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders. DAV is a non-profit organization opened about a year ago to create a decentralized marketplace for transportation services. As I said, we started a year ago and we've quickly grown to about 18 employees, 18 of them here in Tel Aviv. Just this week, we finished a crowd sale in which we raised $24 million, which will allow us to operate for the next few years. So what is DAV? DAV stands for Decentralized Autonomous Vehicles. And I would like to focus today on that first part of that, the decentralization, and specifically what it takes to create a decentralized marketplace for transportation services. So why do we need a decentralized marketplace? Let's start by looking at something that started off centralized and became decentralized, and that's the internet. Specifically the internet in the late 80s, early 90s. Back then we had a bunch of closed silos like AOL, Prodigy, CompuServe, closed silos that created a curated experience with their email service, their weather, their email, their users, their login systems, their billing. They control the entire experience. And by the way, when I created this yesterday, naturally being a procrastinator, I went and checked out what's happening with CompuServe today. And turns out they're still online. This is their website as of July 26, 2018. This is their weather service. And when you click on their homepage on what's new, this is what you see. That's a homepage of one of the internet giants from the 90s in 2018. And this is what happens, and this is what you get when you innovate in a silo, when you're not open to outside innovation, as Stephanie said, which is so important to be open for outside innovation because not one company can build it on. So let's look back at the early 90s, where a number of standards came up for defining how to find pages, like URLs. You had standards for connecting a series of hypertext pages to each other using those URLs. And when you connected all of that together with standards that came before that, like TCP/IP, we had the open internet and the World Wide Web. And with it, a wave of innovation, new ideas, new businesses, and it was really one of the biggest revolutions in the history of mankind. And it happened because of decentralization. Because suddenly anyone with an internet connection was able to innovate, to create something new, to publish content, to develop an app, to develop a service. There were no gatekeepers, no one controlling who could do whatever they want. Anyone could innovate from a dorm room, from a garage, or from their parents' office like I did back in the 90s. And that's what we're trying to do at DAV for the transportation sector. We're creating an open platform that is fully open source and creates a common standard for transportation, a platform that allows vehicles, users, services, and infrastructure to work together in a decentralized way. This is Priyanka, one of our advisors, and she said, I think she summed it really well. She said that DAV is to the future of transportation what TCP/IP was for the internet. And I think that really sums up the kind of level we want to be at. We want to be this catalyst, this platform that enables other businesses to innovate on top of, to create this open platform where anyone can build the next big thing without any gatekeepers and without any silos. So to explore how we do that, let's look at what it takes to create a marketplace, even a centralized one. So let's say a passenger wants to get from point A to point B. First, that passenger needs to be able to find all the drivers around them. It needs to discover them. Then it needs a way and a common language to communicate with them and agree and negotiate to the terms of those services. And finally, it needs a way to know who they're talking to, whether they're trustworthy, sign agreements with them, and transact or pay each other. Today, we have all of that as one closed system services, web apps, applications that offer the entire platform, from matchmaking to route planning to payments, the whole thing, and they control the entire experience. It isn't open to outside innovation. So what we're looking to do is create all of this in a decentralized way, not in a silo, but completely open in a way that cannot be controlled by one player and doesn't have any gatekeepers. And that's what we're building. So this January, I was actually in Moscow, and we did our first delivery drone test flight. I was able to order a drone from my phone to come to me, pick up a package, deliver it to its destination, and I paid for that using DEV tokens, which is a new type of cryptocurrency specifically designed for transportation missions. This is what it looks like on the blockchain. The tokens were deposited into the drone's wallet, and you can see it here. So what does it mean for a drone or a vehicle to have a wallet? Well, the logical conclusion, the logical next step is to allow that drone to spend money. So last month, a drone in Berlin broadcasted the need for charging services. Charging stations around it responded, and it negotiated with one of them and signed a smart contract on the blockchain for those charging services. When it finished charging, it took off, and DEV tokens were transported from the drone's wallet to the charging station. And what we've done here basically is gave a vehicle a way to earn money and spend money, just like Tal from Bosch said, which is a really important thing. And like, this really blows my mind. I mean, it's not enough to just give vehicles the way to go from point A to B if they always have to go back to their home base to recharge like a Roomba, if they're not able to be truly autonomous and find the services they need and consume them. So what's the solution? Does each company need to deploy a network of charging stations, a network of service centers, cleaning centers, mapping, route calculation, all of that? This would create a huge upfront cost for new companies who are trying to enter this field and would really stop innovation. What we need is a common protocol that lets any vehicle discover any services around it, lets it communicate with them, negotiate for those services, lets them pay for those services, all without requiring any previous business arrangements between the two companies. And that's what we did here. The drone was owned by Copter Express, a Russian company. The charging station by SkySense, a German company. A third company that recently launched on the network is from the US, offering route calculation services. And they were all able to work together. So that drone can do its mission autonomously because it buys the route calculation services, so their engineers don't need to develop those algorithms. It is able to fly longer and cover longer distances because it is able to tap into a network of charging stations, and it is able to provide services and get paid for those services. And all it takes to accomplish that are the tools for those drones and vehicles to discover each other, communicate with each other, and pay money and earn money. So that's pretty much it, but I know I talked a lot about very futuristic sounding things like drones and autonomous vehicles, things that seem very far away in the future, although they aren't really. But this same technology, which one day will be used to allow an autonomous vehicle to be truly autonomous around the city and connect drones to last-minute delivery robots, it can also be used today to connect drivers and parking spaces. It can connect passengers and taxis. It can connect electric vehicles to charging stations. The opportunities are really, really endless here. And personally, this is what's most exciting for me, because we're building a platform that is open and anyone can innovate on top of. So we really have no idea what the first killer app will be. That's something that will come from companies like yours. And I would love to talk about that. Thank you.
So when talking about a commodity like energy, how are you ensuring that your coin is maintaining a stable value? So that, let's say I was buying electricity, that the owners of that electricity are actually going to receive payment and that's adequate?
Mm-hmm. Well, the issue of coin volatility is something that we prefer not to tackle because we're not here to control the price of the token. but to create something that is a utility, and we're actually classified by the Swiss regulator as a utility, which is why we're not tackling that. But when you have a coin that is separate from the rest of the crypto economy and has widespread use, it will have more stability, we hope. And also, this is about the user experience. I mean, I've said this before, but we're not crypto purists. So when a person here on the street wants to buy a ride, he doesn't need to understand cryptocurrency. He needs to see a price in shekels or dollars or euros. And that is actually something where a company can come and provide that service on top of the DAV network. They can build an app that provides an amazing user experience that connects drivers and riders and allows users to pay with their credit cards, and they'll perform the transaction in the background. That's an example of one service that can be built on top of the network. I'm sure there's many others we haven't thought of.
Today, infrastructure is funded by our taxes, people. Machines, drones, are going to be using our infrastructure. How does that transaction work? You mentioned infrastructure early on. How would then that relate to the city who has to fund and provide roads, landing space, or whatever for the vehicles? Where does DAV meet 18th century infrastructure, if you really want to call it that?
Mm-hmm. Well, as it relates to the payments for using those infrastructure, I mean, that's an issue we're all discussing around autonomous vehicles and, you know, the resource of the curbside that needs to be paid for. That is something that needs regulation. And when that regulation comes, it can be supported by DAV, because those contracts between the vehicle and the passengers, they can include more than two parties. They can include the vehicle and they can include the driver, but they can also include an insurer, an arbitrator, someone who might want to buy some of that data, and it can include the city who will take a small part of that. And you can code all of that into the smart contract. So it's ready for that. Thank you.